Hello and welcome back to Cinema Jam. Today we have a new mini jam episode. I'm your host, Sebastian Gomez, and today we need to talk about the summer of 2025 because it feels like it's the summer that superhero cinema was reborn. I'm talking about the two massive reboots that redefine their universes. On one side, we have This Is Superman by James Gunn. On the other hand, we have Fantastic Four First Steps by Matt Jackman. These films didn't just start new timelines, they brought back a feeling that was missing in many of the last decade superhero films. Do believe we have been missing this feeling of joyfulness and discovery that we were missing for a long time. So, on the side of DC, the new DC universe with Superman as its beacon of hope. On the other side, we have the Marvel finally giving us the first family, the first superhero family, the Fantastic Four. With a story grounded in discovery and family dynamics, I think both films signal a major and a very welcome tonal shift on both universes. Instead of focusing on world ending stakes from the get go, both movies brought focus back to the characters. Superman reintroduces the hero as a symbol of kindness and an example for society, while the Fantastic Four is a story of exploration, teamwork, collaboration, and the bonds that makes them a family. The biggest pro of this summer is without a doubt the return of wholesome, aspirational heroism. For years, the trend was to deconstruct the heroes, make them dark, gritty, morally complex. But these two films prove that a hero who is genuinely good is not dumb or outdated. Superman especially brings back the joy and the appreciation for a hero who inspires us to be better. And I think it was pretty powerful pull up in the movie. Another huge win for both films are the characters. I think the characters are very well played, especially in the case of Superman, where the supporting characters feel alive. And for example, the Daily Planet is buzzing with personality. Louis Lane, played by Rachel Brosnahan, Jimmy Olsen, played by Skyler Gisondo, Perry White, played by Wendell Pierce, actually give a very good performance in what they have to do, even if they have a small time in the screen. Except for Louis, they aren't just accessories to the plot. They have they have connections and they have something to do in the movie, especially connecting Superman to his humanity. Also, the parents of Superman, played by Pruitt Taylor Beans as Jonathan Kent, and Martha Kent, played by Neva Howell, actually give it a lot of heart and feeling and understanding on why this character grows up to be this superhero, this beacon of hope. In a similar way, the Fantastic Four succeeds because the dynamic between the family, between the Fantastic Four, we're talking about Reed Richards as played by Pedro Pascal, Sue Storm played by Vanessa Kirby, the Human Torch, Johnny played by Joseph Quinn, and Ben Grimm played by Evan Moss Backrack. They are a family first, hero second, and then that actually makes a whole difference. As I mentioned, the collaboration of other characters as well are pretty interesting. There is a very interesting role played by Walter Hausen as a previous villain, but we didn't see that fight. It just happened off screen. Sarah Niles as a collaborator of Sue Storm, that it has some political background in this movie. So it's quite interesting to see what is happening, not just between the family, but the relationship with the world. If there is a potential negative in the movie, is that maybe this optimistic tone might not resonate with everyone. I know that there are dark times in the world right now, so maybe some viewers accustomed to the darker, more cynical takes on the genre might find this approach too simple or lacking in edge. I think it was a bold choice both by DC and Marvel to pivot what they were doing into this direction, but I actually think that moving away from all that moral ambiguity, it was worth it, and I love this new direction. It can be a point of debate for audiences who prefer their heroes with more flow and grit, but I actually think is worth to explore in a more positive and I mean there is always good when we can hope for something good, even if it's in the silver screen. So, in the end, the core theme of this summer, I think, is inspiration over intimidation. These heroes don't rule from fear, they lead by example. And I think that's the word hero in superhero. So, I think these films explore what it means to have immense power and choose to use it for unwavering good, for the benefit of all. It's a powerful message in today's world, reminding us that there is strength in kindness and hope. The character development is all about relationships. As I mentioned before, Superman's identity as Clark is just as important for him as his superhero persona because it grounds him. We see his humanity through his interactions with his colleagues and friends. And for the Fantastic Four, their powers are just secondary to their personal growth as a unit, as a family. The conflict and resolution come from their interactions as much as the fighting with their external villains. I do think the plots serve the character first approach. I'm not going to say that these are perfect plots. There are actually quite a lot of holes in the plots, but I think they serve their purpose of finding and connecting with these characters, especially like an interaction. And both films actually have something interesting in the plot that we come to the movie or to the story much later after they have been in that these heroes have been introduced to the world. So we come in late to the story basically. Superman has been active for, I think they mentioned 3 years or something like that. The Fantastic Four as well for 5 years when they got their powers. So we already come with them knowing how to use their powers, knowing what they can bring to the world and the hope that they can represent. So and the plot works very good around it. Even as I mentioned, the plot is first around the characters. The stakes feel very personal in both cases. And for Superman, the challenge is earning the trust of the world that fears him, not just punching a monster. And for example, in the Fantastic Four, it's about learning to work together and surviving in a dangerous new frontier. And it's a movie about exploration. And in this new frontier, they find dangerous things in the universe, right? So the world saving is a consequence of their personal journeys, not the other way around. In the end, both films also make sure these heroes understand that they cannot be heroes by themselves. They require the collaboration of others. In the case of Superman, he relies on Louis and the Justice Gunn, played by Mr. Terrific, Eddie Gattagi. Nathan Fillion plays one of the Green Lanterns. We also have Hawkgirl, played by Isabella Merced. And these heroes come to help him, not directly. They're not fighting the same enemies that Superman is fighting. That's an interesting part. He had to rely on them to help in other parts of the world or other parts of the city. And I especially think the job of Mr. Terrific is pretty good. The character played by Eddie Gattegi, I think, is one of the outstanding performances in the movie. So these other characters, the Justice Gang, for example, have their roles to play. Without them, Superman could not have been saved several times, and also he could not have saved a lot of people because he cannot be everywhere all at once. So he had to rely on them basically to stop the destruction of Metropolis and to stop a war in another country, an invasion in another country. And in the case of the Fantastic Four, they have to make a very important decision related to their family that could put in jeopardy the whole world. But when planet's destruction is imminent, they had to rely on the entire planet to collaborate to be able to survive in saving the planet. And it was an interesting point of view because they have to appeal to the kindness and the humanity of everyone to be able to save it. So it was a way to showing that it's not the sole responsibility of the superheroes to save a planet, but it's everyone's responsibility. It's not just the people in power that are the ones responsible to saving the world, but everyone has to put their own grain of sand to save the world. So it was interesting watching these two movies. I'm sorry I haven't mentioned David Corenswet. That's the new Superman. He did a good job, especially trying to appeal to that wholesomeness and appealing superhero persona. It reminds a lot to Christopher Reeve's first interpretation of Superman at the end of the 1970s and beginning of the 80s. So I think he actually did a good job. The clearest comparison of this new Superman is, of course, the Christopher Reeve films. It feels like a direct spiritual successor. It does capture a little bit of the same sincerity and wonder, but it is updated for a modern audience. It is a stark contrast to more somber and conflicted portrayals of the previous DCU, especially when we're talking about the Zack Snyder universe and all that. It feels a whole complete different character basically. It was interesting watching these summer movies because we come from last year we have a very different contrast, and actually in the spring we had a different type of superhero movie. I think the last three movies from the last phase of the Marvel universe, they released Deadpool and Wolverine last year. This year they released Thunderbolts, and they also released Captain America, a new world, something like that. But in particular, I think the tone of the dark Marvel tone was present in Deadpool and Wolverine and Thunderbolts, because these are movies full of anti-heroes. They are morally gray characters in many ways. And it was maybe like a final nail in the coffin of the previous iteration of the Marvel Universe. It will be interesting to see what is going to happen, especially with the Thunderbolts, because now they are the new Avengers. But it was a chaotic and often grim conclusion to that phase of the Marvel Universe. And the tonal shift that is happening in the Fantastic Four, it becomes more radical and intentional after watching these two movies so close together. It feels like a clean break and a deliberate move away from the darkness and back towards the light. Let's hope it keeps going like that. I don't know what is going to happen with Avengers Doomsday. That is I guess, the next big picture in this universe. Well, and in the middle, there is also a new Spider-Man movie. So I hope there is more hope, and there is more hope in this new iteration of the franchise. The Fantastic Four gets the tone right by leaning on optimistic, adventurous spirit. It feels like the early Silver Age comics, something previous film versions really struggled to capture. I'm talking about the two previous tries of getting the Fantastic Four to the big screen in modern times. Neither of those work very well. So I do want to talk about the villain in Superman, because that is the darkest theme in the movie. So the villain is, of course, Lex Luthor. This is a much darker Lex Luthor that we have seen before, especially because there is certain cold impression. I don't know. It's like the cold following that billionaires are getting right now. He doesn't have employees. He has a group of lackeys that will do anything that he wants. And he has two superhero minions, I guess is the term to call it, that they will also blindly do whatever he does, even if puts them in danger. So it's like, it's interesting because he lying, he knows he's lying, he's inventing, he's creating, he's using social media actually to damage the image of Superman to the world. He has a very extremist point of view, and they blindly follow him. So it's interesting because it's something that we're seeing right now in the world where social media is weaponized, and billionaires have become, cult leaders ruling by deceit and paranoia. So it's very interesting because that's one of the darkest part of the movie, and it's actually well played because it's that dark and deceitful way of living, making out news and making out the bad things that Superman is doing, just to in contrast with the people that really want to do good things. And in that Superman, he just wants to do it because he thinks he's right. And he believes in his heart that doing the right thing is how everyone should do it. So it was an interesting contrast. So I do recommend these movies. I think if you have been feeling a little bit of superhero fatigue from especially overcomplicated multiverses, I think the summer of 2025 gave us a perfect antidote. It's a reminder that why we fell in love with these characters in the first place and why they give us hope. Let me know your thoughts on our social media channels. You can look or you can search for us as Cinema Jam Pod in Facebook, Instagram, on YouTube. And well, I hope let me know if this wholesome approach worked for you. And please remember to share this podcast with anyone who loves movies. Until next time, keep jamming about movies.